James, you had mentioned yesterday and before about trying to maybe do something a little bit different with the defense given the number of snaps they've played. Have you guys changed anything?
I don't think I said that. I talked about practice. We cut
That's
practice
what I mean.
back.
Yeah, have you done anything different with it?
Yeah, we cut practice back.
James, Miles told us that he, in the running back group, made it a point to go meet with the offensive line, kind of express confidence in them. To see the peers supporting each other, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, we got a good group of guys. They get the big picture. They understand this is the ultimate team sport, and no individual is going to have success without the group. We've been that way for a long time. Our guys do a really good job of that. The coaches have done a really good job of that. They saw the older players do that. So our guys are really good that way. In the locker room after games, we always talk about making sure to thank the trainers and the managers and the doctors and everybody else that had an impact on the game and our success. So our guys do a pretty good job of that. I think they get it. They understand.
James, in what ways, if any, has Etor surprised you this season and over the past few weeks in particular?
Yeah, obviously we were excited about Etor, and we thought he had a chance to make a move this year. You never know. We've expected a lot of guys to make moves. Obviously his production over a 2-week period of time was probably as good as I've been around at the defensive line position in terms of a complete game, tackles for loss, sacks, that type of production. Pretty impressive. So we need him to play that well again against this week against a really good opponent. That's going to be important for us as well as the whole D-line. As you can imagine, Rob Windsor's excited, being from Wisconsin, so we're going to need the D-line to play well. That's going to be a big part of the game.
Hey James, you hear a lot that running backs need a series or two or something like that to get in a rhythm and kind of get a feel for the game. Is that true for every position, or is there something specific like, a linebacker, corner? Do they need a couple of reps to kind of get into the rhythm of the game?
I think in general, I think that helps. Obviously, guys being able to stay in there and get a feel for what's going on and how the flow of the game's going and have an opportunity to get some plays. Because a lot of times, depending on what position you play, you may be in there for a couple series and not have any action come your way, depending on what position you play, obviously. But yeah, I think there's a aspect of that. That's why we talk about rotation before the game, so they can mentally get prepared for what to expect and how the game's going to go. And then I think most of the coaches, we'll have a rotation go into the game, and then obviously the game will impact that. If someone gets a hot hand, you're going to ride the hot hand. If somebody is struggling, then you got to make those decisions as well. But early on, we try to have a rotation that we communicate so that they can anticipate and get a feel.
Where has Jahan Dotson improved the most over the course of the season?
I think, he came in and had a lot of ability right away in terms of just naturally being able to catch the ball and body control. That's something, at the wide receiver position, you hope that's something they have. Obviously, we coach techniques and fundamentals and those types of things. But it was obvious when he got here that he was a very fluid guy, he was a very smooth guy, and catching the ball just came very natural to him. So I'd say the two biggest areas for him, obviously, were getting stronger, which he did a pretty good job of. I remember even calling his high school trainer a couple times. I think I was shocked a couple times when I called him about him preparing, because that was concern coming in, that he was going to have to get bigger and stronger in the weight room. And then I think the other thing that I would say is obviously the playbook. Him getting comfortable and confident with the playbook so Trace could anticipate what he's going to do. So that's helped as well. But he's picked things up, pretty quickly. And he's just one of those guys that just doesn't really seem to faze him. It's not too big for him.
Where do you see him still having to get better as this season goes along? Obviously, in the course of his career, he's going to get better, but in this season particularly.
I think both of those things. I think confidence with the playbook. I think the more positions he can learn creates flexibility for us, that we can move him around and play him in different spots. So give us the opportunity to get the best 3 guys on the field. And then continue to do a good job in the weight room, because most guys in high school, they don't lift during the season, so they shrink up. Our guys do a pretty good job from a nutrition standpoint and from the weight room perspective, but it's different. This is a grind. The intensity and the length is much different than it is in high school. Just like when guys go to the NFL, that season is a grind. So that's an important part of it as well. These guys doing a great job with sleep and nutrition in the weight room, so that they can continue to make gains during the season.
Is he close to being able to play other positions, or is that a ways away yet?
I think it's something that we're looking at. Obviously we'd love to have the ability to get guys on the field, and no different than with the offensive line or no different with receiver, that guys aren't stuck into positions, and it doesn't allow us to be flexible and get the best guys on the field. So we're looking at that.
James, is there a key to complementary football?
Yeah, I think obviously that's what it's all about. It's about offense, defense, and special teams all kind of having a big picture plan of how we have to do it. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that in my 8 years as a head coach. This year we're out of whack, in terms of defensive reps and in terms of offensive reps on the field in terms of production. I think a lot of it is the stuff we've already talked about. Is about third down, is about understanding what's happening on offense and what's happening on defense and how we call the game, and then obviously special teams. So it's each component. We've done a really good job, in my opinion, of balancing that. That was a big concern of mine when we went to this offense, that there was some challenges built into that, because of the old offense we did enough of everything that it was helpful for both our offense and our defense. But that was one of my big concerns going to this offense, to make sure we did enough of those other things. So when you're playing a team like Wisconsin, and you never see that from our own offense, it's all those things. So it's how you practice, it's how you play the games. Special teams have a big impact on that. Being able to swing the field. So when you don't score touchdowns, you have to be able to get a couple first downs and be able to punt, and punt well, so you can swing field positions. So all those things, play a part in it.
James, you mentioned yesterday that you felt like you guys weren't playing up to the expectations you had for this program. How do you mark what a successful season is as the season goes along? Is it how much better you got? Is it who you beat? Is it?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes you guys ask me questions that I have no way of answering. It's a loaded question that I got no way of answering. So it's like I get that question after that game. It's hard to answer. At the end of the season, we'll have a pretty good idea. I mean, obviously, after a loss, if I don't say anything, if I say overall, I feel like there's some good things going on, that's not going to come off well after that type of loss we just had. So, obviously, at the end of the season, we'll look at big picture. We want to be undefeated. We want to win every single game. But sometimes you guys ask me questions right after a tough loss, and it's a tough answer. That's what me and Chris were walking up, and I was just saying, next year I'm going to, make sure everything I say in the preseason, everything I say is very calculated, because that's the challenge. I want to be able to come to you guys. I want to talk, and I want to be able to be transparent, and I want to just really answer the question as honestly as I possibly can. But sometimes it puts me in a tough spot with our players. I want to be positive with our players. I don't want to be negative with our staff and those types of things. And after a game like that, sometimes it's difficult to answer some of the questions you ask, and handle how I want to handle our coaches and how I want to handle our players and how I want to handle our program, but also be able to answer the question that you guys asked. That's challenging.
James, if I'm not mistaken, all of Dotson's receptions have resulted in a first down. Is that just a coincidence of some sort, or is there something that
it is a coincidence? But we should throw him the ball more. Yeah, first downs, they're good. So we want to throw the ball more. But yeah, it's just a coincidence. But the reality is he's a playmaker. And I'm not talking about huge explosive plays, but he just consistently makes plays when the ball is thrown to him. That's why we want to try to find a way to get him on the field.
James, what are the positives you've seen this week?
This week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of the things you talked about. Our guys are very resilient. They're positive. We try to be positive as much as we possibly can in a world that's not always that way. And again, I get it. But I just have never seen leadership. I've never seen programs. I've never seen teams or organizations be successful without that. So I see our guys, obviously, when we are not successful, we're bitterly disappointed. But you better bounce back from that as quick as you possibly can, and then you better be able to go into meetings and not be defensive. No different than me coming into the press conference and not be defensive. I remember years past, I'd come in defensive, and I've tried to do a good job this year not coming in defensive and just answer the questions. It's the same thing I'm trying to preach to the players. I can't be defensive with you guys in a press conference, and then the players come into meetings, and I don't want them to be defensive about answering questions and making corrections. So, you know, I see our team doing that. I see our team taking ownership. I see our team embracing the growth and change that we've had. I see us getting better at D-tackle linebacker, which was a big question coming into the season. I thought we threw the ball this week on our Tuesday. We start practice on Tuesday with a 7-on-7 against the defense, and we went 14 for 14, and we looked sharp. So I see positive things going. We got to translate it to the field against a really good opponent coming in here.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Guys.
Thanks, Coach.